everyone, it's Shel from Paper Rock TO Studio, and today I'm sharing with you the art that I made for Susan, who is the second of the 4 winners that contacted me. Well, actually, one of them still hasn't contacted me. Not sure what to do about that, but this is her art. She said that she likes royal purple, teal, and yellow, but then in her email she changed it to gold. And she likes spirals, leaves, and moons for shapes. And so I decided to start out with the drawing, and I'm using my soft graphite pencil. That's my mechanical pencil that I really like. I do switch to a drawing pencil later that has an even softer graphite. But I decided to draw a swirly tree and a moon with swirly clouds and maybe some water, because I was thinking about the dark purple being the sky and the teal being water, ocean or something like that, or a lake. So I just started drawing and, refining what I was doing. I decided to do this directly onto the canvas, although it is kind of rough and bumpy and the graphite smears somewhat. But I just didn't feel like getting out another piece of paper and going through the whole process of transferring it and all that. Excuse me, my voice is kind of growly today. So just drawing along, having a good time. She didn't say anything about trees or oceans, but if you're going to have a moon, you got to have something in the moon and in the scene. So then on that other side, excuse me for a moment. Okay, so I had a blank spot there, and I did not have a visual triangle. I had kind of the mass of the tree and the moon, and then nothing else. The third point of the triangle wasn't there, so I decided to draw a boat. And the boat's out on the ocean, the trees in the sand, so it's in the foreground, and then you see out onto the water there's moonlight shining on a sailboat. So once I had my drawing done, I went ahead and put a coat of gesso over it just to seal in the graphite, because graphite is water soluble, and so I was planning on using a watery medium, and that's I decided to use my India inks. These are permanent when dry, but they kind of behave like watercolor, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to have a watery scene and then have some collage in front of it. So my whole background is painted with these India inks, and I'm using purple and teal, and that's a very deep, it's like a dioxazine purple, and then of course a deep teal as well, more teal than turquoise. So I'm kind of mixing the two colors. I also got some salt and was trying to do a watercolor effect, but the salt didn't really work as well because I'm on a canvas and I didn't put any watercolor ground on there or anything. It didn't really absorb the water and make the interesting effect that it normally would on a watercolor paper. It did make an effect, but it wasn't as obvious as it would be on watercolor paper. So I'm blending a little bit of teal into my purple and a little bit, well, I didn't really blend much purple into the teal, but I was trying to get a watery effect while still maintaining the color where I wanted it. This would be at night, a night sky. And then I mixed quite a bit of water with the teal at the bottom to make different variations of the color. That's how you lighten this color. This type of paint is to just mix more water with it. Same with watercolor, so it's a similar idea, except for this dries pretty much permanent It did lift a little bit when I was doing the collage, but not too much. It should dry permanent, and I probably just was too impatient and didn't let it dry all the way. So then I got out some titanium white and I added like some lighter areas. That's another way you could lighten the color is to mix it with white, obviously. I didn't do that. I just used more water where I wanted it to be lighter, like a watercolor. So I added some lighter highlighted areas to make my swirly clouds show in the sky, and then also the tips of the waves to make them look more wave-like, added in the titanium. And then some swirly behind the tree, because obviously there's going to be stuff behind the tree that you can see through the branches. So I figured it could be clouds back there and maybe some little shadows of more branches, that type of thing. And once that was all dry, then I went ahead and added some splatters with that same titanium white India ink and a small brush. So then on to the collage portion. I went ahead and got a piece of deli paper and am tracing out my tree onto the deli paper. And I did use a black marker instead of my usual pencil because I really wanted to make sure that I could see it to cut it out. It's going to be a bear to cut out with all those swirls. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to cut swirls before, but they're a pain in the booty. So I wanted to make sure that I could see the lines really well from the back. And then I got out some browns and creams and some text and music papers and collaged up my tree. And I'm not so much thinking at this point about highlights and shadows like I normally would, like, oh, this side of the trunk needs to be darker and this side needs to be lighter. I'm just doing a real random pattern. A little bit of rust colors, copper, grays, the creamy color of the aged papers, and the text and music papers. Just completely random, trying to make kind of a look of bark rather than really being concerned about the lighter and darker colors like I normally am when I paper paint. So this is more just random collage than it was paper painting. There is a difference. Some of these are deli papers that have been jelly printed. Some of them are, one of them is a piece of scrapbook paper that looks kind of like rusty metal. A lot of it is background papers, underground papers, or where I've just scraped off extra paint onto paper. But I just store all those scraps in my little plastic boxes and by color. They're actually getting a little bit thin, and I do need to start sorting some more scraps, which the scraps at the moment are all over the floor in my studio. I'm impatient, so I just throw everything on the ground. I mean, not everything. I put stuff in the trash, but if I'm going to save it, I put it either on the shelf by my desk or else on the ground. And when the shelf gets too full and I haven't sorted it, then stuff starts going to the ground in a stack. And there's not much space in my studio, so it really takes up the space really quickly, and basically the entire floor is covered. But that's the way I work, and so whatever. So for the sails of the little sailboat, I used map papers, little bits of map. And then for the boat itself, I wanted it to be red, and I picked a dark red that actually turned out to be a little bit too dark, and I lightened it up later. But I was sticking with the jewel tones. The teal and the purple are jewel tones, intense color. And so I wanted my red, my little bit of red, to be along that same line, an intense color. And then for the moon, I used yellowish, goldish pieces of paper, which mostly end up getting covered up, but it looked really cool. And then I put gold foil on it and kind of covered most of it up, but I wanted to use the gold foil, so yeah. So once that is all complete, I need to give it a good dry, of course, and then I start the cutting, and not going to make you watch that. Cutting out the tree took a really long time. This whole project actually took about 2 hours and 15 minutes to complete. And it is a 6 by 6 canvas panel, so it's not very big, but it did take a lot of time. I mean, that's not a lot of time, you know, I've spent a lot more time on bigger canvases, but this was not a quickie. So then I started sticking it all down. I'm using the Liquitex gel matte medium. It's thicker, kind of like a paste almost. And it works really well for this process. I will link it as well as all the other products that I used in the video description box below the video, with links to mostly to Amazon unless I got it somewhere else. If you use those links, I can get a teeny tiny little percentage of what you buy because I did get affiliated with Amazon. Since I use them all the time, I buy everything on Amazon. I figured I might as well just go ahead and do that. So I'm happy if you use my links. Not making money as an artist, and I do this for free. So if you are planning on buying something, please use my link. So that thing was tricky to glue down. It did not want to glue down at all. Kept coming up. I also folded over the edges onto the back to make a more cohesive look. And then I'm putting on my moon into the moon area. And also I will add my pieces of the boat. The boat itself is in 2 pieces because of the way the wave came up and over. So it's got 2 little pieces for the red part of the boat. And then the sails are separate. And then for the mast, I didn't actually collage anything, so I'm just going to use a singular piece of paper to create a mask. Mast, not mask. Oh boy, it is one of those days, isn't it? Maybe I should still be in bed. That would be nice. So there's my little map sails. I like to use maps in my collages and text paper and music paper. I think it is interesting. It draws your eye and makes you really look. So then, of course, leaves. Got to put the leaves on the tree. This is a piece of jelly printed newsprint weight paper, and I'm just cutting out little leaf shapes and putting them around at the tips of the spirals in different places. I'm not going to completely cover, I mean, I just spent all the time making those spiral branches. I'm certainly not going to cover them all up with a bunch of leaves, but I am adding enough leaves to give you the idea that it has leaves. And leaves were one of the things that she liked, so it also adds another element of interest and color to the whole composition, as well as the green that I picked coordinates well with the teal. It's a cool green piece of paper. So all the colors on here are pretty cool, except for the sun, of course. Has some warm tones on it for contrast. I mean moon. It's not a sun, it's a moon. The sun would not be out if it was dark sky. So there's my little mast. It's a piece of a cardstock scrap. And it's white, and I end up changing the color of it because I didn't think it looked good white. So then I start in with my Posca pen. This is the fine tip Posca pen, not the extra fine, but the fine. And I'm adding some detail to my waves. And then I thought, you know what? instead of outlining everything with black like I normally would, I'm going to outline everything with white. So I end up doing all my fine detail outlining with this white Posca pen. Never even used a black one. I like the way it came out. I think it stands out really well from the background to have the white outlines. Since it was a pretty dark, the whole thing is pretty dark. I don't know if you guys noticed, I cut out a separate piece for my little knot in my tree with a spiral. I collaged that separately and added it after I glued the tree down. So I draw around all the branches and all the leaves with the white. Posca pen is a acrylic type of a paint or ink inside of a pen, so it is permanent when it's dry. Unless you put it on something slick. It won't ride on a slick surface and still be permanent, because if you put something wet over it, it'll slide. But it works great over acrylic paint and India ink and things like that. So that worked out very well. Here I am changing the color of my mast to yellow, and then brightening up the red on my boat to make it just a slightly brighter color. I wanted the boat to stand out from the waves just a little bit more. So then I think the next thing I do is sign it. Yep, sign it. And then I'm going to use a foiling kit. This has adhesive and sealer, and then these sheets of a very, very thin, flaky stuff that is gold colored. It's not actual gold, but it's called gold leafing. And what you do is you put the adhesive on, and then you're supposed to let it dry for 30 minutes. Do you guys think I let it dry for 30 minutes? Of course not. I heat tooled it. I don't know if you're probably not supposed to do that. It might even be flammable. I'm not sure, but I have no patience. And then you take the sheet, which has some plastic within the foil on the other side, and you press it down onto the adhesive. And then you're supposed to take a stiff brush and brush off the excess. I used a dried up baby wipe instead. And then I brushed it at the end with a little soft brush. If you have enjoyed this video, please remember to thumbs up, comment, subscribe. All those things really help my channel. And, I appreciate that. Obviously I do if I'm making gifts for people who win my subscribing drawings. So the final thing I did, instead of using the sealer that comes with the foil, I just used the Liquitex gloss varnish, gloss medium and varnish over the entire piece. So this will be the finishing of it, and it'll be all sealed and ready to get in the mail to Susan. So thanks for watching, and that's it for me. Bye-bye.